Little People, Big Dreams, Jane Austen, written by Maria Isabel Sanchez Vergara. The Austen family lived in the heart of the English countryside. Every evening, there were 8 children seated at the table for dinner. James, George, Edward, Henry, Francis, Charles, Cassandra, and little Jane. At that time, girls were only allowed to do things like singing, sewing, and housework. Jane and her sister Cassandra found being a girl a bit of a pain. However, Jane's father ran a school and taught the sons of wealthy men. One day, he asked his daughters to join their classes and learn the same things as the boys. Jane loved to read. She always chose a book instead of her dolls and spent endless hours in her parents' library. Jane and her siblings would often write and perform their own plays. She came up with the best stories and soon realized she wanted to become a writer. Every night, her 7 brothers and sisters sat around the fireplace. They loved listening to Jane's stories until it was time to go to bed. One evening, Jane was at a ball and met a young man named Tom. As they talked, they fell more and more in love with each other. But Tom's family thought Jane wasn't good enough for their son, and instead of fighting for what he wanted, he proposed to a rich heiress to please his family. Jane decided to write a similar story to this, but with a much happier ending. And so the novel Pride and Prejudice was born. A daring girl named Lizzie was its heroine. Jane kept on writing about young women who were brave enough to make their own choices and who never gave up. When her first book came out, many people loved it, but Jane decided to keep her name a secret. Jane went on to write 7 novels full of grace and talent. Little did she know that one day she would be considered one of the greatest writers in the world. Little Jane would be happy that the books she once wrote are the ones we still love reading today. Jane Austen was born in Steventon in England. As the 7th of 8 children, she grew up in a very large family with 6 brothers and 1 sister. She was extremely close to her only sister Cassandra for her whole life. Her family valued learning and Jane went to boarding school. She received a limited education but had to return home due to sickness. She was then educated at home by her father. It was in these early years that her love of reading and writing began. She wrote poems, plays, and stories, and then her first work, Love and Friendship, at the age of 14. It poked fun at the over-dramatic novels that were popular at the time and showed her clear talent for language. Jane continued writing and authored 7 very famous novels, including Sense and Sensibility, Pride and Prejudice, Emma, and Persuasion. They all offered with insights into the lives of the landed gentry at that time. Jane published her books anonymously under the name A Lady, and it wasn't until after her death that she was recognized for her talent. Now her works are rarely out of print or off the television screen. Although she received a proposal, Jane chose not to marry. She lived a happy life surrounded by family. To this day, she remains one of the world's most beloved writers. The end.